we work specifically in family businesses. And I always say when mom and dad are fighting, the kids choose sides. Even when we don't want them to, they choose sides. And the same is true when an executive team is at odds. When an executive team is not aligned, when there's misalignment above me, it creates opportunities for chaos at my level and below. Welcome back to another episode of the Frustrated CEO Podcast. My name is Patrick Lyons. I am one of your co-hosts now for episode, I think this is 95, 96?
It is 95.
95. Okay, good. I'm getting ahead of myself. Back with my friend and my colleague, Patsy Freeman. Patsy, welcome. How are you?
I'm well today. Thank you.
Awesome. Listener, if you are finding us at episode 95 and didn't listen to 94 or 93, let's catch you up. We are in the middle of a 5-part series on really trying to address the distinction between growing your business and growing up your business to help answer the question, are we ready to grow or do we have some growing up to do first? This series really is born out of, I would say, several decades of the work that we've done with clients who have hired us to help them grow their business. And as we've started some of that work, realized we're not quite there yet, that there's some foundational stuff. It's kind of like showing up on site of a new house and trying to build the house without making sure the foundation is set first. So that's what we're in the middle of. If you haven't heard the first 2 episodes, I encourage you, you can pause this right now, go back and listen to 93 and 94, and then rejoin us. And even if you have listened, I'm going to actually turn it over to Patsy and let her catch us up. Patsy, what have we covered so far?
Well, in the first episode, it explores the critical distinctions between growth, i.e. scale, and maturity, i.e. growing up in your organization. While, we work with a lot of organizations, like you said, that aim to scale, that is to increase either the revenue or the products or both of their organization. They often find if they don't have some critical pieces like strategic alignment, leaders at the right levels of the business, and a high performance organization, they struggle to scale. And often see that is not, that's a component of needing to grow up your business first. So that's what we covered in the first episode. And it's really a key to leaders to make the counterintuitive move, which is what we covered in the second episode, of pausing. That's to slow down before you can accelerate growth. I know it's common we hear, got to slow down to go faster, but it is a counterintuitive move for most organizations, and especially, I suspect, for many of you CEOs listening today. What do you mean you want me to slow down?
Yeah.
So you slow down, you pause, you assess, you understand where you are currently, and then you can understand what systems, processes, and leadership readiness you need to put in place in order to grow up your business so then you can grow your business.
We covered several of those. I will fight the urge to recap all of the last episode, right? Because it's there. You can go back and listen to it. But we talk about several of the key points you just made. We talk about the pressures that CEOs face to forge ahead and the resistance they might feel to pausing. We talk about some very specific examples of people who have paused and got the foundation in order and then were able to grow beyond that. And then some strategies. And we gave away, it's actually, you can, if you're hearing about this for the first time, you can still find, we gave away a downloadable PDF on after that episode, still available. You can go to thelionsgroupconsulting.com/maturity litmus, and you can download a very useful tool checklist just to see how ready are we? How ready is my organization for growth? We're also, a little teaser, we're going to give away a couple of useful tools at the end of this episode. Also available from our website, but a different address, so you'll just have to stay tuned to the end or fast forward to the end if you want to know. So, Patsy, what are we going to cover today?
Today we're going to cover strategic unity. So with alignment comes acceleration. We're going to talk about what do we mean by alignment, what does it cost you to be misaligned, and what are some of the components of actually being a more aligned, especially a strategic aligned organization.
This is one of my favorite topics. I love this. Hopefully my enthusiasm comes through. Hopefully my enthusiasm doesn't come through too much. This is one of my favorite topics. Absolutely, for sure.
And I think I will reiterate how misalignment, which we've seen in many, we've heard from many of our guests, and we've also seen in many organizations we've worked with, how that actually undermines growth and is often difficult to identify. So we're going to cover two critical aspects of alignment today. We're going to cover organizational alignment. That's your vision, your strategy, and your ability to successfully execute on that strategy. And we're going to cover your senior team's alignment.
Yeah. Okay, I'm in. I'm excited.
It's funny. You would be.
I had lunch today with someone else, another business leader, and we were both talking. We were talking about this very topic, not even thinking about the fact that we're going to be recording this just a few hours later. But we were talking about how misalignment manifests itself in so many ways that perhaps look like other business issues, when really at the root of it is we've just got either an organization that is pulling in different directions, or we have, I would say worse, even worse. They're both bad, or we have leaders pulling in different directions, and what that looks like in the organization may not necessarily point directly to misalignment, but it's why this is such a critical episode. It's such a critical component of answering this question. Are we ready for scaling and growth, or do we have some maturing to do? Because you just cannot scale and grow to your capacity without organization alignment and executive team strategic alignment. It's until somebody proves me otherwise. That's my belief. You just can't get there. You just can't do it. You may reach some heights, but you will never reach your potential if you've got a team pulling in different directions.
And we've seen that over and over again, haven't we?
100%.
So,
I almost want to say, even okay. See, I did tell you this is where this is born from, where we've been hired. We've all experienced this. We've been hired to help organizations scale and grow, and we'll get in and we'll start working in one area and realize, hopefully sooner than later, but sometimes it's not for a little while, that you realize really that we're addressing a symptom and not the root of the issue. And when we've been able to get businesses, leaders aligned with that decision to pause this effort and come back and let's work on the strategic alignment, it's almost a reflection of, it's a good example of pausing, slowing down to go fast. When we slow down this effort and we spend time on alignment, once that's done, it's like rocket fuel in the organization.
So let's talk about those layers, or 3 layers of strategic alignment. Everybody that's listening to this podcast will be familiar with these 3 distinctions. However, if you think about it, which is what you're talking about, going faster, if you think about it perhaps as an arrow, I've been walking lately and I passed the archery range up in Forest Park, and I'm just amazed at how those archers hit that target. Most of them hit the bullseye. So the 3 areas that we're going to look at, or I'm going to mention, are vision. Are we aligned on why we exist and where we're going? So that's that target, that's that bullseye on the target. Are we aligned on how we're going to get there and what we will prioritize? Leb wasn't able to join us today, but he often says strategy is the art of exclusion. So if I was to keep the archery range, if I had an arrow and I was trying to hit 5 different targets, I probably wouldn't hit any of them because I wasn't aligned or I wasn't clear on what my priorities are. And the one I know will get you even more excited, Patrick, is execution clarity. A lot of companies we see have the first two. But this last piece is where it all comes together. It's where you actually pull the bow back and let go. So do we know what our roles are? Do we know who makes what decisions? Do we know what our responsibilities clear? And do those cascade? And I'm going to say, do they cascade throughout the entire organization? Because as senior leaders, yes, it's your responsibility to make sure the strategy gets executed. Most of the time, you're not the one actually doing the work. So this last piece, this execution clarity, is really important to hitting the target. So that's the organizational strategic alignment. Then we're going to up the ante here. And the second one we're going to talk about is, or going to mention, is our senior team aligned? That is, does our senior team have the behaviors and the leadership skills needed to lead consistently and effectively for our organizational alignment, which is the pieces that we just mentioned, vision, strategy, and execution clarity. So I know we work with organizations that in these two pieces. Do we know where we're going? Do we have the people to get us there? And one key thread that's run through certainly the first 2 episodes, and we will see it will run through all 5, is leadership mindset. And your leadership mindset is especially critical at this level, your senior team. And it often requires that you senior leaders listening to this have to shift from working in the business to working on the business. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get into that in just a few minutes. But because it's a maturity mindset, leaders, we know, have the biggest impact on culture, have the biggest impact on success. And your senior leadership sets the tone. If you are not aligned, no one else will be. And we'll get into later on some cues of misalignment.
Yeah, what does it look like when there's misalignment?
Yep.
I remember, it's funny because I can't say, we certainly mapped out at the start of the series, we mapped out all the different steps that we wanted to cover in a 5-part series on growing up your business. I can't say that a strong theme that would run through it would be the leadership mindset for me. There were a lot of moving parts, a lot of topics we wanted to cover, but that we talked a lot about that the last episode about right. You can't just white knuckle a new behavior. You have to shift your mindset and fully buy into it and understand. We talk a lot when we do strategy with leaders, where we get into the conversation. What's the difference between strategy and tactics? Tactics is the what and the how. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Very tactical. Strategy is the where and the why. And so as we have a room full of leaders, and we're always asking, we're trying to pull them out of the tactics when they start getting into the what and the how. It's like, hold on a second. That's not what we're here to do today, because we'll spin for days and days trying to figure out what and how. The goal of this team is to figure out where do we need to go and why do we need to go there. And we've said before, when the where is clear enough and the why is compelling enough, your people will buy into that, and then they will help you figure out what are we going to do and how are we going to do it. If that's where we have to go and that's why we have to go there, that's when you get your people engaged in that. They'll want to participate in the what and the how. And so that it comes back to the importance of why this is a mindset shift. Because as a leader, if you're not clear on on what does alignment look like? What where do we need to do we if you as a leader don't buy into the value of alignment, the role of alignment, the critical role that alignment plays in execution, in I mean up and down the org chart, up and down your balance sheet, alignment is driving so much of it. But if you're not clear on that and you don't have a compelling reason why, then you're not going to be able to sell that, right? You're going to white knuckle a new behavior. You'll try a few things, and then as soon as it becomes challenging or hard, or as soon as somebody outside the organization challenges you, who's board of directors or whoever it is that you may answer to, as soon as it becomes hard, if you haven't really bought into it, if the where isn't clear enough and the why isn't compelling, you'll just revert back to old behaviors. And I'd say for us, the leaders that we've worked with who have made the most growth, whose businesses have grown up the most, it's where they've completely bought into the need for greater alignment, organization alignment, and executive team alignment. And they understand the why behind it, the purpose behind it.
Absolutely. And it means growing up your senior team, as we've been talking about as well, and building some shared discipline, learning to trust each other.
Yeah.
We often see as people get promoted in an organization, the level of trust goes down.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Well, I think there's some leadership myths out there. One of them, a couple that I just jotted down, is it's easy to think if you're in the C-suite, it's all up to me. I've got to have all the answers. I've got to, white knuckle through it. I gotta. Instead of going, I trust Patrick because he's the CFO of our company. He's got this covered. I trust the CTO. I've got people. You've got people. You've got your whole team at the table. So trust goes back to that shared and clear roles and responsibilities. We have everything covered to run this company effectively, and we're going to trust each other because I can only do so much.
Yeah,
so that's part of it. And whether that team trusts each other or not, that's going to be apparent to everybody in the organization.
That's it. The number of times we've said this to leaders, to me, we want to talk about companies as families sometimes, and we work specifically in family businesses. And I always say when mom and dad are fighting, the kids choose sides,
right?
Even when we don't want them to. They choose sides. And the same is true when an executive team is at odds. When an executive team is not aligned, when there's misalignment above me, it creates opportunities for chaos at my level and below because people choose sides, battle lines are drawn, alliances form, you get duplicated efforts because, trust has broken down. It's just chaos, and that's what. So we're dipping a toe into the question, answering the question. What are what is the cost of misalignment? And I think that right there is a really good one. That if there are silos in the organization, that is a great sign that you've got a lack of alignment at your senior team level. If execution is, if you're constantly running behind, if you're missing deadlines, if balls are being dropped, if there's not even agreement or alignment on prioritization, you mentioned that earlier. These are signs of misalignment, and there's a real business cost to that. What else? What's on your list, Patsy?
We're losing revenue. We're not meeting deadlines, because they're really solid business sense. Decision fatigue. How many times have we talked to people? I don't know if I can make that decision. I don't know if that's Patrick's responsibility. So then it just kind of circulates. Low trust. We were just talking about. And disengagement. I mean, at a really base level, disengagement and a reactive culture.
Yeah.
We work a lot with the distinction between proactive versus reactive cultures. And, often misalignment doesn't, it shows up subtly at first, but over time, you keep hearing this. If you're really listening, you keep hearing the same conversations, you keep having the same misalignment moments with key people in your organization. They become bottlenecks, and there's a lot of inconsistent messages. So no wonder people become disengaged.
Yeah, you're right. They get frustrated. You start. To me, I think about teams that I've been on where there's been a lack of alignment, or teams that we've worked with to try to create more alignment. I think about there are elephants in the room that we're just not talking about. They're just, that is a sign of misalignment, because an elephant in the room is there's obviously a big issue. there's something that we're not naming, and because we're not naming, we're not addressing with it, and because we're not addressing it, we can't be aligned. We just can't be on the same page. So where you feel conflict avoidance, where you feel the elephants in the room, those are some obvious signs of a lack of alignment. I will say this, and we won't dive too deeply into this concept in this episode because we've covered this in other episodes. But that is the concept that alignment is a journey and not a destination. So you can be fully aligned today, and you you need to expect that somewhere beyond today, somewhere in the future from today, we are going to be misaligned. And it's not because today's alignment wasn't right or wasn't real. It's because stuff happens, and then we need to come together, and we all need to share information, and we need to make some decisions, and we need to discuss as a group, and we need to realign so that we're moving forward again together. And the organizations that get really good at that, they get really good at recognizing misalignment sooner than later. And it's like any other tool that you master. You master the tools of coming back into alignment by using them. So the teams that constantly do that process, they spend less time in misalignment, and they get really good at coming back into alignment because they know, they recognize it, they don't like it, and they've got the tools to do it.
So we talked, I'll just add a couple more symptoms of misalignment, especially focused on your senior team. We talked about some of the symptoms for your organization. But if you think about your senior team, or any of your key leadership teams, one is we keep revisiting past decisions. So that's a symptom. Another is blaming down instead of owning up. Oh, that was Patrick and his team. They did that. Instead of looking at, ultimately, that's my responsibility. So how do I look at that? Yep.
And I told you so's too.
Yep. You mentioned siloed thinking, but another component of that is information hoarding. I've got something that'll really help you, but I'm not sharing that. I'm keeping my silo over here. I'm keeping safe in my silo over here. And competing priorities with no shared trade-off.
Yep.
I'm not gonna give in because this is my priority, even though we have a strategy and we have set priorities for the organization, even though there's some discord there.
And any one of those by themselves would have an impact on the business. And yet alignment doesn't just manifest itself one way, right? It's usually a complex, it manifests itself in a complex number of ways that ultimately grind the business to a halt. That's why we say you can't execute. You can't execute your strategy, those multi-year priorities, and you can't even execute to your fullest tactically if you are misaligned. It just doesn't work.
So the last one I'll add, maybe is putting the bow on the gift, is leadership avoidance. Not dealing with difficult dynamics within the team. Not saying, hey, are we siloed? Not saying it feels like there's a elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Because
I think,
one thing that we really stress for alignment is that you have a safety net, so that you have a safe container. And we'll move into, what does alignment look like? We have a safe container for having these difficult questions, for bringing up the difficult issues, for just being curious.
yeah. I think the last thing I'll add is something you said just sparked that thought, and that is gossip, right? Where you've got misalignment, you're going to have gossip. You're going to have venting about each other instead of, and it usually manifests itself this way. Someone will come to you as a leader and say, can you believe what Patsy's doing, or who made this decision? And alignment looks like this. Alignment says, you know what, actually, here's why we're doing this as an organization, and I'm aligned with that decision. And here, let me help you understand why we're doing this. Again, it's the where and the why, as opposed to misalignment looks like this. Like, hey, I know I was in the room where we made that decision and I didn't agree with it, but I got outvoted, and that's misalignment.
Yep.
That trust me, that conversation you just had with an employee becomes part of the story that people tell in the organization. That's a sensational story, and they can't wait to go and tell the lunch crew or whoever else they can. And now everybody knows that. And now your leadership team is divided very publicly.
So, we could spend 2 or 3 more episodes talking about what does alignment look like, but let's just touch on a couple of key bullets here. Yep. Having a plan in place is essential. Knowing where we're going, how we're going to get there, and who's going to help us get there is essential. So that's kind of like your foundation you were talking about in terms of the house.
Yep.
Here's one of your favorites. Alignment does not mean agreement.
Right.
Agreeing to align versus being all on the same page is a critical first or second step to having strategic unity.
Yeah, I have a great story. I'll keep it short. A great story about that. An organization that we've both worked with for a few years. One of the leaders, in a conversation with me, was talking about a decision that the executive team made, and there was alignment around that decision. And that decision got rolled out, and this leader said, one of his people came and said, what are we doing this? Like, didn't understand it, didn't understand the where and the why, and came with questions and somewhat opened the door for the leader to go, yeah, I'm not really, I don't know if this is a good idea. But this leader told me, and he was really proud of himself. He said, I just said, yeah, I'm aligned with that decision. And his employee said, yeah, but do you agree with it? And he said, it doesn't matter. I'm aligned with it. And he wasn't trying to convey, I don't agree with it, I just don't want to use those words. He said, literally, my belief is, and this is where this team is, they have grown to that point. When I say I align, it doesn't even matter if I agree or not. Like, I'm aligned. And wouldn't it be great? I mean, if you're listening, wouldn't it be great if that's how your executive team responded when somebody said, well, did you agree with this? Do you think it's a good idea? It doesn't matter. I aligned with it. That means I'm in. That means I'm all in.
Yeah, and I'd be curious for anybody listening to this podcast, how are you feeling right now when Patrick says that? This is an example of a mindset shift.
Mindset shift. Absolutely.
Exactly. We're so used to having to have our way, wanting to have our way, needing to be in agreement, that it is a mindset shift to think of the higher purpose of our organization and our work together, what we care about as leaders, to align versus agree. And that will lead to another key point is strategic unity at your senior level, at any level really, means having each other's back. It goes back to what you're just talking about, no gossiping or venting.
That's it.
So we're upping the ante here with each of these bullet points.
Yeah.
And developing the leadership skills to have the courage to have regular, healthy conflict. Conflict is not bad. Most of us don't know how to have regular, healthy conflict and address it head on. How many times have we heard, if you address it now, it's a small issue. If you wait 3 months, it's a big issue.
Yep.
and it's permeated through the whole organization. So you have tentacles you have to pull out of everything. And then another one I know is the foundation of our work is common language, common tools.
Mm-hmm.
How do we all speak? How do we all use the same tools? How do we speak the same language? Being in alignment is a great example of a common language. And a safety net is also another great. And all this leads for easier resource allocation. If we're clear and aligned, then the pieces on the board move much easier. So some ways of how to achieve this, great to say, yeah, that's what alignment looks like. It's how do we achieve it? Again, we all go back to having a plan in place is essential. Your example, Patrick, was terrific. Set alignment as your expectation for your senior team and for your organization. Focus on psychological safety. Psychological safety has been a big concept in the business world these days. A lot of companies don't exactly know how to do it or practice it. Everything we're talking about here is a practice, putting it in a place in a practice. Every time, I don't know about anybody listening, but every time I've picked up a new tool, the results aren't exactly pretty, so I have to practice. There's some tools my husband won't let me get near. Be open and honest. Say what needs to be said.
Mm-hmm.
Master the tools, for navigating conflict. And here's the one you were talking about earlier, Patrick. Commit to realign. Every time. Every time.
Yep.
Embrace the journey. Look at your mindset. Realize that the big picture, what you want to accomplish and how you want to accomplish is bigger than anybody and far more important.
Yeah. I love those. And to go a little deeper into a couple of them, when we talk about when you said make alignment the goal, set the expectation of alignment. Again, make the distinction in the room, the difference between alignment and agreement. Right? You can say we're not here. We don't. I almost say, if as a lead, boy, to me it's scary when a team instantly agrees around the room, because either we're missing something. Like we're missing something. If everybody, I don't want 5 other people in the room who see everything exactly the way I see it. I'm hoping somebody has a different perspective. That's where psychological safety comes in. So if there's immediate agreement, we're either not doing this issue justice. I mean, maybe it really is real. There's real agreement around the room, but sometimes that can be a mask for we don't have psychological safety that we need to have the kinds of conversations to be able to actually name an elephant. Like, okay, we've got elephants in the room, but no one's going to take the risk of spotlighting that, and so we're just going to nod and agree and say yes. But agreement does not mean alignment. And so I think as a leader, shifting the mindset, instead of we're here to agree, it's, okay, we're here to align. I love that. I also think there's a lot of value in, it's not, and this is a mistake I'd say I made in some of the earliest days when I would work with teams on trying to create greater alignment. I would ask a yes/no question. Are we aligned? And you'd get yeses and nos. And everybody's answering that question through their own interpretation, their own definition of what alignment means. And I don't think anybody was dishonest. I don't think people, I mean, I know it happens, but I don't think people were intentionally being dishonest. I just think when I said yes and you said yes, we had different ideas about what that actually meant. And so I would say it's a great exercise. There's opportunity for you as a team to grow. Define, what do we mean by alignment? What are the behavior? Don't define alignment. Come up with what the behaviors are that alignment looks like. So when we've done this with teams, it might look like this. It might mean when the door opens, we don't disclose who agreed with this decision or not. We all just embrace that we've aligned to it, right? That when the door opens, we all have each other's backs. And if somebody comes to me and complains about you, I'm going to say, hey, hold on a second. That's, I'm aligned with this decision. We support each other. This is one of my favorites. This doesn't come out all the time, but I love when a team will get to this point when they'll say, alignment means that when this decision blows up, no one can come back in here and say, I told you guys this was a crappy idea. Like, there are no I told you so's. That if we align on this decision, then we all own whatever happens. We own if it works out well, and we own it together if it blows up. If it blows up, we come back and we say, okay, that didn't work. What do we do from here? And we discuss it. So there's real value in not just asking the question, are we aligned, but defining what are the behaviors of alignment so that when you ultimately ask the question, are we aligned, everybody has the same understanding of what those behaviors look like once the door opens.
So as we close and move into let's get practical, I would say as a reminder or summary of this episode, alignment doesn't really slow you down. It's what lets you move faster together.
I'd actually argue the opposite, that a lack of alignment, nothing will slow you down. I don't know, maybe nothing. Okay, 95 episodes in, I have a flair for the dramatic. But very little will slow you down like a lack of alignment.
I agree with that. Yes.
You and I working on the same thing and we're pulling in opposite directions. It's going to frustrate everybody. And nobody works in a vacuum. So we're not just frustrating each other. We're frustrating everybody else around us. We're frustrating our CEO who's trying to figure out why can't these two figure this out, right? Just figure it out. Well, it's a lack of alignment.
Yes. And when we are aligned, it allows the senior team, it allows your leaders to move with more confidence. Mm-hmm. And because their roles and directions are clear.
We've when Leb has joined us in past episodes when we've talked about alignment, he draws the analogy to the alignment of a car or the alignment of a vehicle, which works because in the past 2 episodes of this series, we've talked about when you're trying to grow an organization that hasn't grown up yet, it's like pushing a car to 200 miles an hour when it's only built for 100, right? It starts to shake. It becomes a very bumpy ride. You might not make it. If you do get there, boy, it's going to be an ordeal. So think about where alignment comes in that example is if you're trying to drive a car and the wheels are completely out of alignment, they're going to pull you in a different direction. They're going to pull you off course. There's going to be a lot of wear and tear on those tires. You get less gas mileage when your wheels aren't in alignment. And so if it's good for your car, why the heck wouldn't it be good for your business? I think all of those things are the same. It's more wear and tear on your business when you're not aligned. You're not as efficient. You don't get good gas mileage. Everything takes longer. It's a bumpier ride. And so just that, this is an important question for you to ask as a leader. If you're trying to answer the question, are we ready for growth? It's why this is, to me, this is a pinnacle part of this series, is if you're trying to answer the question, are we ready for growth? If we're not aligned as an organization around our vision and our strategy and the plan that we're going to follow to get there, and if my executive team isn't aligned around our strategy, then you're not ready for growth. It's the harsh reality. And this is where maybe go back to the episode prior to this one and take a strategic pause and get your executive team aligned. And I'll say, you didn't get misaligned overnight. You're not going to get aligned overnight either. But if you do it right, and when you get it right, man, everything becomes easier. I think about it. Actually, it's that same team I was talking about earlier. That leader who told his employee, "I'm aligned with this decision," right, and just stuck to that and genuinely meant it. The CEO of that company has told us that she has never been happier in running her business. That her spouse has said, boy, you haven't complained about work in like 9 months. And it is so much of it stems from having a team that you feel like is pulling together in one direction. That doesn't mean you don't have problems, but when you do have problems, your team is positioned well to address them. They're not complicating anything. I don't know. What are you thinking, Patsy?
I'm thinking it's a wrap. Are we ready to move into let's get practicals?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Would you like to go first? As you think about
one
yeah.
that we haven't talked about, but kind of nestles into the mindset concept is for you as a leader, start to notice when things feel off, whether it's discord or some of these components we've talked about with misalignment. Misalignment could be in yourself, wrestling with your own discord and chaos. It often is with other people. But to stop, address it for yourself, to find the resources if you don't already have them, and then address it with the other person or with the teams. Because this is one piece that Patrick was talking about that just continues to, if it permeates, then it's thwarting your growth.
My turn?
I've got a couple more.
Okay. I would say we can alternate.
Okay, let's do that.
All right. Do something a little different. I'm going to say, we spent a little time talking about this. Just a reminder that alignment is a journey and not a destination. So work to become aligned. That's the goal, become aligned. And remind your team, we will be misaligned in the near future. And here's what we're going to do when that happens, right? We're going to name it. We're not going to make it anybody's fault. We're going to name it, and we're going to address whatever the issue is, and we're going to do the work to come back into alignment. That's what high-performing teams do. So alignment's a journey and not a destination.
Well, that I would add that conflict is part of life, our business lives and our personal life. So learn the skills, develop the courage, practice the skills, practice the courage to have regular, healthy conflict.
Yeah. You just stole two of mine in one
Good.
point, and that's
Glad
good.
to do that.
Conflict is a great thing, and and alignment requires courage. You have to be willing to have those conversations. So well done by you. I'll say alignment also. You've touched on this a few times. Alignment just can't happen without psychological safety. You have to, as the leader, that is on you to create the kind of environment where whatever needs to be said can be said, and then that's where that courage comes in, that you embrace conflict, you address conflict in healthy ways, and that moves the team forward and creates more opportunities for alignment.
Great, thank you. And if you're listening and you're part of your senior team or a critical team in your organization, recognize that you set the tone. You set the tone for growth, you set the tone for growing up, and you set the tone for alignment.
Yep. Okay. The only other one I'll add, unless you keep going, then I'll keep going because I have more notes. As a team, don't ask the question, are we aligned? Define what alignment looks like. Make that, it's a great exercise. And that way, then each subsequent time you ask the question, are we aligned? People will understand what it is that they're signing up for. Anything else you want to add, Patsy?
I just would remind people that there are three layers of organizational alignment. Your vision,
Yep.
do you know where you're going? Your strategy, do you know you're going to get it there? And execution clarity, do you have the people and processes in place to be successful and adapt along the way?
Yeah. And here's where I'm just going to throw in a plug. This is the kind of work that we do. And boy, if our passion didn't come across through this episode and every other episode we've ever done on alignment, then I don't know, you must just be listening wrong, or I don't know how we need more bells and whistles, but if that's something that we can help with. Or I should say, that is something we can help with. If that's something you want help with, if you're ready to fix it, then check us out at thelionsgroupconsulting.com, and we'd be happy to just talk with you. Now, let's get to, we teased this a little bit at the beginning. Patsy, you have a couple of tools, one to help with organization alignment and one to help with that leadership strategic alignment. A couple of tools. Do you want to talk about those? And then we'll talk about where our listeners can find them.
Sure, I'm going to throw a third one in just as a bonus.
Okay.
We have a strategic unity checklist, and it just simply lists many of the things we've talked about, plus a few others that you can, do it yes, sometimes no on, just to kind of like, what is our current reality? Data is your friend.
Yes.
If you don't know where you're starting and don't know where you want to end up, then it's not going to be a successful journey. So one is a strategic unity checklist, and the other is called a maturity mirror for senior teams, and it gives you some of the behaviors that are apparent in an immature team versus a mature team. And so it will be helpful just to see, what do these behaviors look like? Often when we're in the midst of it, we don't know.
Right.
And then the third I'm going to offer is, what are the 7 signs you're misaligned? It dives in deeper to what we talked about earlier, but how do you start to recognize? How do you start to recognize we're revisiting the same decision that we already made, but we're remaking it? How do you start to recognize some of those things? So it just dives a little bit deeper into the patterns that exist in your organization.
Love it. Love it. You can find all 3 of these downloads on our website at, again, the Lions Group Consulting, and that's LYONS, thelionsgroupconsulting.com/strategic unity. So just as it says, so the lionsgroupconsulting.com/strategic unity, you'll find all 3 of those checklists. I do want to highlight that we talked earlier about a maturity and an organization maturity checklist that we gave out at the end of our last episode. This one is more about the maturity of your senior team, the behaviors on the executive team.
Good call.
Both are really valuable, and both are, my favorite word, free. So download those and take it yourself as a leader. If you want to share it with your senior team to gather their feedback, or others in the organization. Again, as Patsy said eloquently, data is your friend. Anything else, Patsy, for the good of the cause?
I think much of what we're talking about here is starting to develop common language, common tools. So if you don't know what healthy looks like, then it's a good conversation to start to just educate yourself.
Yeah, I agree. All right, are we aligned that it's time to close the show?
We are aligned, Patrick.
Okay. Excellent. Whether you agree or not, we're aligned, and that's all that matters. So, listener, again, check out those downloads at the Lions Group Consulting /strategic unity. You can get last episodes at the Lions Group Consulting /maturity litmus. And please engage with us on, you can find us on YouTube at The Frustrated CEO. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Patsy and I are both, as is our colleague Leb Tannenbaum. We're all 3 of us on LinkedIn. Engage with us. Let's connect there. Let us know what's working, what's not working, how we might support you, and any content that you might want us to address in future episodes. Patsy, thank you so much. Another great job.
Been a pleasure. Thanks.
Likewise. And listener, thanks for sticking with us to the end of another episode. We'll see you next time on the Frustrated CEO podcast.